Hello, and welcome back. That is to say, if you are the person who's been watching my other videos, welcome back to you. Glad to see you back again. And if you are a returning viewer, please don't go anywhere. I really need the views. So, today we will be looking at my choice for my 5 least favourite Stephen King books and why. Now, full disclosure, I have to say that it's been a long time since I read any of these books, so I'm really going off my impression, what I remember from reading them. I'm not going to give any spoilers, I'm just going to give a very, very basic breakdown of what goes on. So, first off, we have got number 5, The Eyes of the Dragon, seen here in all its glory. So The Eyes of the Dragon is Stephen King veering away from the well-trod path of horror into the realm of fiction. So, as with most fiction, there's a king, there's a queen, there are 2 princes, one's a good prince, one's a bad prince, and there's an evil antagonist, which in this case happens to be an evil wizard by the name of Flag. Now, if you're a constant reader, one of Stephen King's constant readers, you will know that Flag pops up like no one's business throughout the Stephen King universe, and this book is no exception. So there we've got it. You've got the evil scheming wizard, you've got 2 brothers, one good, one bad, one strong, one weak, and the good brother has got to find some way of thwarting Flag's evil plan. What is Flag's evil plan? I don't remember. I read this book like decades ago. So why am I citing this as one of my least favourite Stephen King books? Simply because I just found the story to be very, very weak, very, very tepid, I would say very tasteless. I don't mean tasteless as in bad taste. I just mean, just not leaving me with any particular flavour. One thing that I do remember is I found Flag to be quite a naff bad guy. I found Flag in this book to be quite a weak antagonist. He wasn't intimidating, he wasn't threatening. And yeah, I just found this book to be pretty weak in general. That's all I can say about it. But that's not something I would say about Stephen King in general. And that's why this book is on the list. Next up, we have got From a Buick 8. So this book was published in the early noughties, I believe, 2000, 2001. So what is it basically about? You've got this Buick 8, which is actually a very, very special car. And it's discovered, I believe, by a sheriff's department, if I'm not wrong. And shenanigans ensue. There's this general discovery of this car and, theorizing of it. I'm not going to spoil it too much. I mean, it could be an interdimensional thing. It could be an alien thing. It could be supernatural. So the story revolves around this, this gradual this discovery of this unworldly automobile. Again, I read this book a long time ago, and I've got to say I don't remember, again, full disclosure, I don't remember massive amounts of detail. This is one of the criteria, in fact, which I used when choosing my least favourite books. I mean, I can't say that I liked a book, let alone loved a book, if it doesn't make an impression on me, and if I don't remember anything about it, or I remember very little about it. And it's not because I read these books a long time ago or I read these books once. It's just because they didn't leave enough of an impression. And that's my quibble here with From a Buick 8. It's not terrible, just as the previous book isn't terrible. It's just that it's a bit flat and it's just a bit flat. It's just a bit, for me, feels a bit like filler. I think that Stephen King went through a period in the noughties, or the early noughties at least, where he was not on his game. And I'm not criticising him. I know that he had that accident, he nearly died, the car accident. So I'm not knocking him. It's not a criticism. I'm just saying that I think that he went through a period where his cup of creativity runneth dry, if you know what I mean. And so that's it. From a Buick 8, it's just a bit kind of meh, I think. Next up, we've got Everything's Eventual. Everything's Eventual is a compilation of short stories. If you know anything about Stephen King, you know that he is not afraid to write short stories. He is not afraid to write novellas. And this book is on the list precisely because, and I believe it was written around the same kind of period when in my opinion, Stephen King was going through a bit of a dry patch creatively. And this book is on the list, Everything's Eventual, simply because I just found it to be very, very, very flat. It just lacking in spark. And I wouldn't ordinarily say that about a Stephen King book in general, certainly not a Stephen King compilation of stories. Some of his strongest work, I think, is in the format of short stories and novellas. Different Seasons is a superb combination of 4 novellas. Night Shift, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, Skeleton Crew, all superb compilations of short stories. I mean, Night Shift has given birth to, The Children of the Corn, Graveyard Shift, the movie. It's been the inspiration for several movies. Those three short story compilations are superb, and that's why this one surprised me, because when I saw a Stephen King, another Stephen King compilation story, I was quite surprised that this was so. I wouldn't say uninspired. I'll be honest, I did read it once, but there's not really a great deal I remember from it. I mean, I don't remember enjoying it at the time, I have to say. So this isn't just a retrospective memory. I think there's one story in this. The only title I can remember maybe is The Road Virus Goes North. So I think it was in Everything's Eventual, but it might have been in Just After Sunset. So again, I thought it was uninspiring and just flat, and there wasn't that spark there that you expect from Stephen King. Next up at number 2, we have got The Tommyknockers. Now, I'll be honest, The Tommyknockers is unusual from every other book on this list in that I haven't read it. So it's a bit cheeky for me to have this on my list of books by Stephen King that I don't like. But I didn't read it because I tried, but it's the only Stephen King that I've DNF'd. And I've got to admit, I hardly got into the story. I hardly got into it before DNFing it. I gave it it just didn't grab me. It just didn't pull me in. Now, I bought this book in 1999 in Prague. No reason why that's important, but just thought I'd mention it. And so it was and that's when I tried to read it, 1999, and I haven't picked it up since then. Maybe it's a great book. Maybe if I give it another bash, I'll love it. So, I'm putting this on here tentatively, but it's a Stephen King DNF, so it's got to be on the list. Last up at number 1, at the infamous number 1 spot that we all dread, Dreamcatcher. So this is the only book on the list, and probably the only Stephen King novel that I've read, and I've read most of them, that I would consider to be awful. You've essentially got, the plot is basically you've got 4 friends, they're childhood friends, and I believe they're going hunting. They go hunting every year in Maine, I think it is. And probably Maine. I mean, that's where most of Stephen King's stories are set. And while they're in a kind of while they were enjoying themselves in a log cabin, there's a kind of alien infestation, you could call it. People get infected by these creatures that burst. If I remember correctly, they burst out of people's anuses. Maybe intestines, but I think anuses. And so these creatures are euphemistically known as shit weasels. Pardon my French, but that is what they're called in the book. And so the military are called in. I remember there's some military bad guy who's, kind of taking things too far. And there's also, apart from the shit weasels themselves, there's also this kind of red weed type thing, very reminiscent of War of the Worlds, called Ripley, strangely enough, which is a nod towards Alien, because obviously chest bursters in Alien, bum bursters in Dreamcatcher. So, we can see the connection. It just feels like Stephen King, rather unsubtly was doing a pastiche of Alien, or, a homage to Alien, maybe, I don't know. But the whole thing, I just think this book's dreadful. It's the only Stephen King book I would say that is dreadful, certainly among his novels. I just couldn't recommend it at all. I did read it. I read it through, but I thought it was, again, I think it was written around the same period as some of the other books on this list, where, in my opinion, Stephen King was going through a bit of a dry period, and I really think it shows in this book. I just found it derivative. I just found it unoriginal. I found it boring as well, which is the cardinal sin of anything that is supposed to entertain you. So there we are. Do you agree with my list of the five least favourite Stephen King books? Please, if you have an opinion, comment below. And in the unlikely event that anyone is still watching this video, and in the even unlikelier event that you may have enjoyed some of the content, please consider giving me a like and a subscribe. And see you on the next video. Thank you and goodbye.